So Candace can come back up as well, and committee, jump on up with your questions.
I have one more slide too that has our, oh, I'm sorry.
So thank you very much. You're working in, this doesn't apply to all areas, but you are working in some areas like in Philadelphia, New York, or New Jersey, Delaware area, where the states are close together and vendors will have face different regulations across states. Do you have any insights, or is this a problem for your smaller vendors when the states have different regulations and requirements for WIC?
So we heard this come up in a couple of different ways. We tend to talk a lot with our store owners around fresh fruit and vegetable stocking, which of course is a little bit easier to manage. But I did talk to a couple of different distributors who actually said that can present a challenge for them, because if they're serving a multi-state region and they've got different stocking requirements, trying to respond to all of the different tiny bits of demand can be really challenging for them. And in addition, for the ones that would like to do marketing, in-store marketing materials, those are different requirements across the states. So from the supply end, it can be challenging. From the store owner end, I can't speak to that too much. In our region, we know a lot of our store owners go to the Philadelphia Wholesale Produce Market, which is this enormous facility with tons and tons of fresh produce. That doesn't present a challenge so much because it's not about packaging and things like that.
Yeah, I was going to say that when we do have many owners in our network that have multiple stores, but they don't tend to cross geographic, state
Right.
borders, so that hasn't been as much of a challenge in the actual small retailer end of things.
Well, first, I want to thank very much my colleagues from the Food Trust for doing a beautiful job at illustrating how complex the local food systems are and the very important role that small stores play in this saga. So I think your presentation was spot on, and especially one of the last slides when you brought up the issue of profitability. At the end of the day, we need to keep in mind that small store owners are not altruistic organizations, and that they're businesses, and they're small businesses, and that we need to make the case for the weak business model for small stores. So the question that I have, for any of the case studies that you very eloquently presented today, have you come up with the business model, with the estimates, with the ability of actually do a presentation to a group of small business owners and tell them, if you follow this model, this is how much profit you're likely to make, this is how soon you're going to be recovering your investment, which is the question that you made.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the answer is yes and no. When we provide training and technical assistance to store owners, we do go over things like how to price produce, and ways that they can use produce that's about to spoil to make a fruit salad or a yogurt parfait, ways to increase the value to kind of get it out the door so that they don't lose that money. But we're more of a public health food access agency. We are not we wish we had business planning skills, believe me, but we would like to be able to do that. But I can say that the National Association of Convenience Stores is doing some of that very work right now. They've been a tremendous partner to us and probably others in the room who've done work around small stores, and they have published a couple of different documents about building the business case to stock healthy and to stock fresh. And they also want to, I don't think they've done anything yet to this end, but they want to come up with sort of like a turnkey solution for small stores that want to do healthier items and include some business planning tools so that folks can estimate when they're going to be able to at least break even, because we know that there's always cost incurred anytime people change operations and they start stocking things. So yes and no.
I would want to add to that, because in our interviews with store owners, we did ask about sales, and many of them say, I actually make more profit off of fresh fruits and vegetables than I do on tobacco, on lottery, on grocery, or any packaged products. Because when they buy fruits or vegetables, even if they buy them at a supermarket and resell them in their store, they sell them in almost like added value products. So a dollar bag of washed grapes, for example, or just loose bananas. And so the percent profit they're making is higher. The issue is volume. So they're just not selling enough yet. It's maybe 1 to 2% of their sales, where tobacco might be 25 to 30 or even 40 or 50% of their sales. There's a big range depending on the store, but they're only making a couple pennies on a pack. So if we could find a way to, again, marry this increase in demand at the customer level with the supply, because I think really at this point in time, having fresh fruits and vegetables be a part of a corner store's business is just still not the cornerstone of their business plan, even though, we do have information to show that they can actually increase their percent profit from it is actually higher.
Yeah, one of the, I can't remember who, there was a study that was a reference on one of the slides, and I can't remember which slide it was, but I believe it was in that study where I read it was on the impact of the change in the WIC food package, including the CVV, and that driving demand for fresh fruits and vegetables at small retailers. And that was a really small study. And I'm just wondering if your experience is, can we generalize what was reported in that study in a bigger scope? Does that ring true to you that the CVV, the change in the WIC food package to the fruits and vegetables CVV, increased demand for fresh fruits and vegetables at the small retailers?
Yeah, and when we've talked to retailers, again, just from some of the quotes that I threw out there today, we weren't asking them about WIC, but they mentioned getting those coupons and that increasing their sales, particularly of fruit. So if there's one small, change and, progress we've made, it has been that fruit sales are increasing because it's something that you can grab and just eat right then and there. Bananas, by the way, are the #1. Bananas are best sellers. It totally validates everything that Chung-Yi was talking about. Because if you think about it, it's something you can grab and you can eat. These stores are all about convenience. And I know that WIC, we don't have a voucher now for like a ready to eat, fruit salad or something like that. But when things are packaged that way, that's actually, so I do think we need broader scale, but I think the biggest barrier to having good data on this is that the sales tracking systems in these stores, they're operating by instinct and by what do I need right now and in the moment. And they just have an instinct of what's coming in and coming out and what they need to buy. It's not on paper even. We've tried to collect, we've had store owners, we've tried everything in terms of tracking sales, tracking inventory, tracking their purchases, having them save receipts. We've tried everything. We even have a pilot with only 5 stores, but we actually have installed POS systems that connect to a back office server at our office. So we're the host for these POS systems. And we have, at this point, over 1 million data from over 1 million transactions, but it's only for 5 stores. We can't scale that up to the 2,000 corner stores that there are in Philadelphia. But in terms of, I do think that it's good that, even on a small scale, we're able to measure that. So I do think that what we have to do is also make WIC, make it from the consumer end that these small stores are actually starting to carry WIC, and maybe just, the communication on that end would help. I would say too, and I'm sorry I didn't say this before, I have some information about why they didn't participate. There were 2 things. One is that they felt that they're already operating with very small profit margins. And so when a store owner sees this huge list of things, this is a quote from one of the store owners: "We don't do WIC because there's so many different types of products to carry." And it's like, where do you get the money for that stuff? It's expensive. So when you're, Jennifer mentioned the idea of a loan or some kind of program that would lower that economic barrier. Since these are all small, independently operated stores, if we could lower the barrier to entry into the program for them, I think that would really help through a loan or some other kind of program.
And I just wanted to mention one more thing from a rural retailer perspective, which can be very different. Some of the rural grocers that we talk to that are in more isolated parts of certain states, it might look like from the outside they have a lot of buying power, but they might only have 1 to 2 distribution companies coming through the state at any time, and they might have like a $40,000 purchasing minimum, and they just can't meet it. So that makes it more difficult to get WIC products in if they aren't meeting those minimums. And they're facing competition from larger box stores that have moved in and pulled their customers away. What some of these folks also said is that, from their perspective as store owners, they wish they had more folks with WIC coming in, using cash vouchers and, buying in general, but they hear from customers how difficult it can be to get signed up. And of course, this varies by state as well. So I just wanted to also put that out there. I know in particular, there's a couple states where it's incredibly burdensome for people to sign up for WIC, and it's sort of, it participation could just be much higher, and that would actually drive more customer demand as well. So we have to think about that too.
And I was just wondering, in particular with this change in New Jersey, but in general, speaking back to the time of the new WIC package adoption, is there anything extra that you didn't already emphasize about the barriers or challenges specific to small stores in terms of the stocking?
One thing I didn't actually get to mention is I remember one store owner telling me that what they did was they actually would go to a supermarket, buy the products that they needed for WIC, and then resell them. So this gets to some of the reason why, what Deb is working on is so important, because they're not, the reimbursement rates that they then get from WIC for that product, they're not making a profit on that WIC product because they're buying it and then just to have it in stock. So they're buying it already at a retail level price. So that's one other challenge that did come up.
That, and there's a lot of store ownership turnover, which also is just something to note with smaller stores, particularly in cities that don't have high volume. Ownership changes, but that doesn't mean that WIC licenses transfer, right? So there's also just inconsistency for the community, and also if a son is taking over for a father with a store, that doesn't necessarily mean that things transfer if the ownership changes.
Yeah, but there are, not to end on a sort of downer note, but I think that we have seen a lot of positive things too. So the refrigeration really was, in fact, our program, there's sort of a joke around our office, we're known as the refrigerator program. Like if we actually do get a call from a store owner, it's because, I heard from a store owner that there's a refrigerator program where I can get a refrigerator. That's what we became known for. We do go in and we introduce ourselves when we're doing a research project and, do the consent, and we say we're from the Food Trust Healthy Corner Store Initiative, and they're like, is that the refrigerator program? So if there's anything you could think about around that infrastructure, supporting that, or some kind of, again, small loan kind of program, because even small amounts of money for these businesses are really huge. When they're like, I want to say a snack rack. Imagine, like Frito-Lay. They pay about $100 to $150 a month for the placement of that rack right at eye level when you walk in to the store. So not that we can match that, but I think just looking at that model, and that is the business model that store owners are used to. Just trying to think about strategies that we can do with the WIC program. There's a lot, potential. Thanks.
Excellent presentation. I just had one quick question to follow up on Marion's question about data. For the training that you're doing with WIC vendors in the stores that you've been able to intervene with, are you collecting data on sales, or is New Jersey collecting any data on sales with the intervention? And if so, what's the timeline for that data to be available?
You want me to answer? Yeah. The data that we do have is primarily from satisfaction with, or what they've learned from the training, so it's more geared toward that, and then other topics that they'd like training on. We have tried to track sales through at least 4 or 5 different mechanisms. We've tried by doing, monthly interviews with store owners, just asking, how have they changed, increased, decreased, stayed the same, that kind of thing, and over the past month, what are the top sellers? The POS systems, that is another mechanism that unfortunately is not very scalable, and there are still some challenges and downsides to that. Then asking them to even keep track of what they purchase and how often they're buying fruits and vegetables, what they're stocking, how much they're stocking, how much wastage there is. It's just not automated, so. WIC redemption data, okay.
With the stores that are authorized,
Uh-huh.
that you're doing the training with, will the state have any data? Are they keeping track of
Yeah.
the stores that you're intervening?
That's where I think the model from the Old Dominion University presentation that Tanyi presented and Harry, I think, is a really great model where if the state can provide that data, it can really inform programming. The one thing actually that we talked about afterward is, unfortunately, a lot of that data is not going to reflect what is redeemed at the small retailer level, just because they don't have PLUs in a small store, right? So they're just entering, maybe $2 grocery or whatever it is, and we don't know what they're buying. It's that wild card that they talked about. So we don't have a lot of data, unfortunately, on that because we're not actually collecting it, but I'm sure the state has the data. And if they could, I thought that research was great. That was, something like that would be really informative.
It looks like they're all staying seated now. Gosh, what a day. Thank you both. So our chair, Dr. Rasmussen's coming back up, and while she does that, I was just so impressed by all the talks from start to finish today. As a Wickie myself, it just brings tears to my eyes of the passion that's out in the world looking at WIC. So thank you for the time you spent preparing your presentations. You know we didn't pay you for this, so thank you for your time coming. Thank you for traveling here and being here today. And I want to encourage you, every year National WIC Association has a conference. It's a wonderful place to share these results with the WIC community, and I hope you'll do that. So with that, Kathy, take it away.
Well, I'd like to add my thanks as well. You were so articulate, so passionate, and you filled a huge gap for us. You might not know that was a gap for us, but trust me, it's been a gap for us. So this concludes our information gathering session for today. I will speak on behalf of the committee and thank you for coming. And we invite you to join us at the public comment session this afternoon. That will begin at 2 o'clock in this room. We hope you have a good lunch and look forward to seeing you at 2. Thank you all very much.